Alright, so it's December, and I can make a video about that, right? So let's go back in the time machine. Around 1987, Dad picks up a CNC. It was an NC, but a large horizontal machining center from the junkyard. That is the Kearney and Trecker Milwaukee Matic 3B. And I spent my high school summers uh, rewiring this, and we actually used the original control. You can see it right here. That's all germanium transistors from the 60s. They took this out of it was a local manufacturing company with a Sawzall. So I spent most of my sophomore summer splicing thousands of wires and thousands, well, not thousands, hundreds of hydraulic lines to make this work again. And we got it working. It actually worked. The control was pretty limited. God, it was from the 60s. So very basic G code. It actually did circular and linear interpolation, so that's something. But around that time, there wasn't much for retrofitting. It was, you had to buy from Fanuc or Centroid or one of the big companies. Fast forward a bit, we ran the GE control for into the 2000s, and around that time, stuff started showing up. Like, I don't know exactly when all this stuff started, but around 2000, Mach and EMC and stuff like that was available, and I ended up finding Turbocnc, which was the first PC-based machine control that I had found at the time. And I was a cheapskate, and this was free. You could buy the source code for $60, which actually we did, but I ended up not doing anything with it. So this was a basic machine control. It did step and direction. It ran in DOS. Um, so, and it really kind of opened our eyes to what you could do with a PC to control a machine. Now, we played with this for, I don't know, maybe a year. We had a big gantry router that we had put this on, and kind of, figured out what was possible. But Turbocnc is pretty limited. It doesn't have look ahead. It's pretty basic as far as the setup goes. There aren't many homing options. There's no debounce. It's a pretty basic control, but it worked. It really opened our eyes to, hey, we could probably do something with PCs. Now sometime after that we found EMC, which is now Linux CNC. But I started with the BDI, the brain dead install, and went from there, and the rest is history. I love Linux CNC. It will do anything from your basic step and direction machine all the way up to large VMC like the Kearney and Trecker. This is running Linux CNC. It does tool changing, it does palette changing, it does everything within Linux CNC. No external PLCs or anything. But I digress. We're talking about Turbo CNC. So we're gonna, for December, see if Turbo CNC is still something that works. So what I'm going to do is use FreeDOS and create a boot USB and see if I can get Turbo CNC to work. So I already downloaded Turbocnc, and what I'm using to create the image is unetbootin, and it actually acts a little different on Linux versus the PC. Um, the PC, when you create the FreeDOS disk, it just boots into DOS. But the Linux unetbootin creates like a boot manager that then you select how you want free DOS to boot. It seems to work. I actually goofed around with it just a little bit just to make sure this wasn't a dead end. But so let's create the FreeDOS boot USB. I am actually going to go to the terminal because I already have it downloaded, and let's see if it works over here. I swear I can put a USB stick in. It should only be 2 tries to get it in, but it always takes 3 for me for some reason. Alright, let's see if this works. Alright, there it is. Dev SB SDB1. So I'm gonna select FreeNAS, FreeDOS, and I'm gonna create it. And I think it did it. So I already downloaded Turbocnc, so I'm gonna extract this here. And then I'm going to copy this to the drive. I'm going to make a folder. Turbocnc. And I'm going to copy all of this to it. Alright. I'm going to eject that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to boot up off of that USB and see if I can control this Turco with it. Because the Turco is printer port, and that's what Turbocnc runs. Let's see what happens. Alright, be back. Alright, so let's boot this computer with the USB stick in. Let's see if it boots, huh? Alright, so this is what it looks like when you create the FreeDOS USB boot stick from Linux. When I had done the same thing using Windows, using newish, it booted right into FreeDOS. So I've been using number 3, which is FreeDOS Live CD with HiMem and EMM3D6. Boy, this brings back memories. And it boots into the A drive. Now, if we switch to the C drive, and we do dir, hey, there's a Turbocnc directory. So I'm going to go cd Turbocnc, Turbocnc. Oops. How about if I spell it right? And so it comes up with a screen. So this computer is the same computer I'm using to run Linux CNC. It is a quad-core i5 3rd gen. So not super new, but certainly not the same hardware that you would run on this, the same hardware you'd run Turbocnc on in the day. So it's kind of cool that we can test this. Sorry, I'm going to turn the furnace off before it takes off. All right. So press any key. And we are in Turbocnc. So let's do, so these are all hotkeys. I've played around with this a little bit, so I'm kind of familiar now with how it works. F8 is jog. And so this is set up to whatever the default setup is. So let's, Alt then does fast jogging. And I don't know what this thing's doing. So anyway, it needs to be configured. So I'm going to configure, I'm just going to do the X-axis for now, just so you can kind of see. And I actually already have a config set up, because I goofed around with this for a while. For a little bit, just to see if it was working. And I know the X-axis is, the step is 2, and the dir pin is 3. And it has a cool calculator. Can I, oops. Did that now. Watch me flail around in an old DOS program. 2, 3, and I'll have to play around with this. We'll jog it around and see what's going on. So, calculator, there we go. So I know there's 1600 steps per rev, and the lead screw is 10. And that gives me 0.0000625 per step. And I am going to change the acceleration to 20,000. We'll see if that works. Start velocity, I'm leaving that the same. I think that's the velocity that the steppers start, so they kind of start instantaneously. I think I was doing 20,000. Let's see what, yeah, 75 inches per minute. I don't think this is going to work. Slow jog, we're going to do 1,000, and fast jog 20,000. And what else did we do? I think that's it. We're going to save that for now and then come back to it. So now we go to the jog screen. So you can hear that. Acceleration is kind of slow. So let's configure axis, the X-axis. I don't remember what we did. Was it 50,000? We as in I. Was it 100,000? Yeah, maybe that was it. We'll give that a try. So this is me just filling around with the setup of this axis. So let's go back into jog, which is F8. It's usable. I mean, well, that definitely isn't. And I don't know if I was able to go this fast. I think I ended up doing, well, I'll show you the config once I goof around with this a little mile longer. Alt config, configure axis, X-axis. I think I was only able to do 1500 hertz. Yeah, that seems right. And I think acceleration was that. Well, we'll try that. But I can always bring the config up that I had that was relatively working. Bring up the jog screen. Yeah, that sounds right. So you can hear it. It's not the greatest, but I'm sure it would work fine. And really, we're comparing apples to oranges, because this is like a quad-core i5 compared to, like, this would have been in the days of a single-core Pentium 3, maybe. I guess I'd have to look at the specs. But, so, you know, there's been architectural changes in the processors over the years that kind of, I'm surprised this is working at all. So, yeah, so look at that. We can jog. we can jog the MCO around at whatever that was. Let's take a look. If we look at the axes, X is 56 inches per minute. That's pretty good. And it stalled at 70 some inches per minute. So so definitely somewhere between 50 and 70 is about the limit of Turbocnc here. So let's load the config that I had actually kind of set up quickly. It's called Turco. Okay, so now let's try this. Let's bring up the jog. Yeah. So I had all the axes, and the other cool thing, alt set up. Oops. Escape first. Alt set up home axes. Look at that. It's gonna home Z, X, and Y. Although there doesn't seem to be any soft limits, so it's a little scary. Because you can just jog it into the hard limits easy with Turbocnc. There's no other, I didn't put any like over travel limits on this, because with Linux CNC and this machine is small enough, I'm just relying on soft limits within Linux CNC to do my bidding. So okay, now it's homed. So let's bring up the jog screen again. Oops, wrong way. It's kind of scary. But so if we go into the configure, and I'll configure the axes so we can take a look at the numbers. Oh, so it was 100,000 hertz per second acceleration, which I don't know what that calculates to in actual inches per second squared, like in Linux CNC. I'd have to do the math, and I didn't. Oh, so X I am running 75 inches per minute. I wonder why it stalled when I was goofing around with it. I don't know. So we're doing 75 inches per minute, and that was actually, yes, the maximum. Let's see if, let's see, Alt and N. So that's Y. Yeah, we're doing the same, 20,000 hertz. Huh. I don't know, maybe I changed something on this, but it seems to be jogging around at 75 inches per minute. So yeah, cool, huh? So this is an old DOS program running on relatively new hardware. I actually had, when I first goofed around with this, I had a second gen i5, which is the same actual, it's an HP small form factor. It's an 8200 versus an 8300. The 8200 was very crashy. When you'd open up Turbocnc, it would run for maybe a few minutes, and then it would just hard lock, like you couldn't control it, delete, or do anything. This one seems to be pretty darn stable. I haven't had it lock up like the second gen i5 did, so I don't know. And honestly, I've done a few different free DOS and regular DOS USB sticks. I found a utility, and I'll put links to them in the description. I found a couple different utilities. One was from HP that actually created a bootable MS-DOS version 6 point something boot USB, which worked, but it didn't seem to change anything. Like the second gen i5 still locked up either way. But I don't know if I tried the Linux version of NetBootin to create the USB bootable for FreeDOS. Maybe this is more stable, I don't know, than the other ones that I tried. I mean, I could do that, but whatever. This is Turbocnc. It's not like too many people are using this anymore. But I don't know, it was kind of a retro walk down memory lane to see if this was something that even worked anymore, and it seems to. Um, so do we want to see what this is like with Linux CNC now? So we kind of know what this sounds like here. Um, let's go back into the jog screen so we can get one last hurrah. Alright, so we're going to get out of this, exit, and can you reboot from here? No. Alright, so we're just going to pull the USB, hit the power button, turn it back on. And what's cool, you know, this is Turbocnc, and it's running in DOS, and there's really nothing but that, right? It's kind of like a dedicated machine controller. And with Linux CNC, and I'm still using the printer port, you have a whole OS that you can take advantage of while you're running your machine. I just think that's amazing. Amazing, if I do say so myself. So let's bring up Linux CNC with the Turco configuration, and we'll make this full screen. And we got homing working here too, I think. You can already hear how nice it sounds, I think anyway. So that's 120 inches per minute. What do you think? You think technology has come a long ways? And like I say, this is still printer port. This is running, and I have soft limits. I can just run it full tilt from one to the other. Which is amazing to me. Can I crash the tool? I don't know how much space oh no, I would crash the tool. Can't run that into the limit, at least the where the spindle is right now. So there we go. There's a walk down memory lane comparing old and new. I'm surprised it worked at all, honestly. So yeah, Turbocnc, still something you could goof around with if you wanted to. But honestly, Linux CNC has so many more bells and whistles and just runs better. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop talking now. Have fun and have a happy new year.